Hello everyone and welcome to Invincible Guarding the Globe. Today I will be going over what I believe are the best team compositions in the game, or at least trying to give some insight into how to build a good team composition and what the multiple different, as of right now, the multiple different options are. If you're new to the channel, my channel is quite new, so that it wouldn't be a surprise. So if you are, and if you do enjoy this, then please like and subscribe. Because I'll have more content coming out soon, not only on this game, but also other games, which I'm very excited to do. So yeah, if you want to stick around for that, then that would be greatly appreciated. And of course, hope you like the video, and hopefully this helps. So yeah, just want to go over today and see within the game. Obviously, I've been playing for quite some time now. As you can see in the top left, I am level 120. So I would like to think that I can give some good insight into what this game is all about, and the best compositions to get the most rewards, win the most battles, in the different game modes within the game. So yeah, without further ado, we'll get into it. Obviously, this is my personal opinion. Everyone can play the game however they want, whether that's just getting or upgrading the characters that you enjoy from either the show or in general, or if you want to maximize your profits and your rewards. Obviously entirely up to yourselves, but I would just like to have a look into it with you. So let's have a look. So team compositions, obviously there are quite a few heroes within the game. As you can see here, there is 46 total. Now of that 46, most of them are elites, with the newest being Conquest as of this recording. There is also the rare heroes, which can be decent, not necessarily the best most of the time because they don't get a fourth ability. And then there's the common heroes, which I would just recommend not using whatsoever unless you have a very good reason to. So yeah, we'll have a look here today. So yeah, basically, obviously there's quite loads of different heroes, so there's lots of different options. You can play however you want, but some things to consider is that different compositions can work depending on what game mode you're playing and who you're up against. So obviously up to you, but when you start off the game, you might want to build up one team and make them very good until you then can start branching off and making different compositions, etc. But if you've been playing the game for some time, then maybe you want to have a few different compositions that you can use, whether that's against different enemies or within different game modes. So in terms of game modes, obviously there is the main campaign. As you can see, I'm all caught up here. So once you get to a decent level, you can pretty much get through to the latest chapter that the game releases on. The chapters and the campaign isn't too difficult. You can mostly just use whatever team comp you want, and it's basically just dependent on the level of the team composition, whether you have a high team composition or not, basically. Where you see the biggest difference in terms of what you're actually using is probably within Cecil's Nightmares, because you get different enemies within that, and obviously you have to beat them in the quickest time possible. You even get some where you can, you're only restricted to certain heroes. For example, in this one, it's restricted to only Conquest. So obviously it depends on that. Another place you want to be thinking about your team composition is the PvP Multiverse Arena. As you can see here, I'm Elite League 3, which is the second highest in the game. I was within the Invincible League before, however, that is full of all of the so-called whales, and they have power levels within the billions, so it's not very it's nice to get to Invincible League, but to be honest, I would personally say Elite League 3 is a nice place because you get basically the same rewards and you're not all up against the highest players in the game all the time. So yeah, PvP Arena, Cecil's Nightmares, and also of course GDA Ops. Now GDA Ops, that you kind of want to just have as many different teams as possible. Obviously, you have your best team, and you want to put that into whichever GD op you need the most. Most of the time, that should be probably Train and Gain, Downtown Destruction, or Well Done, because they give you the best rewards. And then, for example, if there's a GD event on, you want to have a good team in there as well. So, how do you how do you build a good team? So I'll go into Cecil's Nightmares here just to run over some things. So obviously you can see which heroes I have high up. So I believe these heroes are very good. However, there are some I actually haven't powered up, and I'm now maybe slightly regretting so, because they are quite good. So probably the first thing to consider, and which I don't see a lot of people talking about, is in the top left and right you can see the weird diamond shape, and on the left you can see the different Synergies icon. So if we click on this, it actually tells you about team compositions and what combinations get you the best stats. Now, as you can see here, there's quite a few different options. However, I want you to probably look at the bottom option where it says 3 heroes of the same faction and 2 from another, or potentially 5 heroes of the same faction. This basically means that within the 4 factions within the game, so Worlds Beyond, GDA, Criminals, and Earth Defenders, if you have more of the same faction on the team, it increases the team chemistry, and as you can see here, that gives you actually very good buffs in your stats. So probably what I would like to aim for usually is the bottom option where you have 3 heroes of one, 2 heroes of another, because it's quite often, at least at this stage of the game, because there isn't that many heroes, having 5 of the same faction can maybe be more detrimental than it is for the extra stats. So 3 from one, 2 of another is probably the goal. 2 of the same faction and 2 from another, and then 1/3 one, second from the bottom there, that is also probably very good, but I like to personally aim for the bottom option there. So that is something to consider when building your teams, is the actual faction that they're from and how many of each faction you have on each team there. So how to build a team. Now, depends obviously on the circumstance, as I mentioned before. If you're playing, for example, GDA Ops, sometimes you want to have just all DPS until you get to the higher levels, because depending on the waves, if they're actually difficult or not. I know Training Gain, a lot of the time you don't even need your abilities, ultimate abilities within that, because they can often just punch through each wave quite quickly. In Cecil's Nightmares, again, sometimes you want all attacking at the start because they're very easy to pass through, and then once you get to higher stages you want to survive a bit more. So what I'm kind of looking at here is, if you're up against a tough team like later on in Cecil's Nightmares or in PvP Arena, what is the sort of best team composition for that? Now, it's obviously up to you, but usually when you look at these compositions, especially in PvP Arena, we can go here and check that, and we can see that most teams follow the same sort of pattern, the same sort of setup, where they have what looks to usually be 1 tank. Sometimes obviously on this left side here you can see they have 2 tanks, but usually it's 1 tank, and then usually at least 1 support, potentially 2, because having a good mix of tanks, supports and DPS can be very good. Now obviously if we go here we can check the different tanks within the game. Personally I would say that as you can see from the ones I've powered up, that Immortal and Alan are probably the best in the game right now. Monster Girl is very good, but she doesn't have very good survivability, so potentially she could be a second tank on the team. For me, tanks, their aim is to go straight in the middle, up front, and just absorb most of the damage for as long as possible, whilst your DPS attack the enemy team and kill their players before yourself, and their supports basically keep everyone else alive within that. So up to you on the different playstyles, but I personally think Immortal and Alan are very good. Now, the recent addition of Conquest has shaken things up a bit, because Conquest is, from the looks of it, incredibly overpowered. Maybe not overpowered, but incredibly good. However, he has just released, so depending on how, if you played the event, how many you got, etc. Obviously he'll become more available as time goes on, but I believe him to be a very, very good tank. I'm not sure yet if he would be better than Alan or Immortal, but time will tell. Obviously right now most people probably won't have it too high, so depending on where you are in the game depends on that, but I think that he would also be a very good contender. If we have a look now at the attackers, there's obviously a lot of attackers within the game. I think that Universa is probably the best in the game, alongside Invincible and Doc Seismic. Now these three, especially in the arena, the PvP arena, you'll see all the time. So they are very good. So you probably want to have a team surrounding that. And then obviously with the supports, you've got quite a few options again. Probably the main best two, as you can see, are the ones I've actually powered up here, would be Robot and Atom Eve. Both of these, especially Atom Eve with all of her abilities powered up, are very, very good. So these would probably be a must for most compositions. Another noteworthy mention is Red Rush, who, especially in PvP Arena, has been very effective, and I am going to power him up now because I've seen how well he's doing. So those are probably some of the best key players. But as we saw in PvP Arena, you probably want ideally one tank and maybe one or two supports, and then you want to build it around. So again, we want to look at team chemistry. So obviously it depends. You can have, all the top players, for example, Immortal, Universa, Doc Seismic, etc. But this then slowly, with these, especially these three, because they're all from three different factions, the chemistry isn't as good. So it's obviously up to you. But personally, the team composition I have been running for most of the time has been as follows, with Omni-Man, Immortal, Invincible, Atom Eve, and Robot. Now, the reason for this team composition is they all work very well together, and I can explain why. So, as you can see, obviously, in the middle we have Immortal, the tank. He is brilliant because of his invincibility when he gets down to low health. Basically, usually within fights, tank just gets melted straight away, but because he has this invincibility, he can stay alive long enough to get to his ability. Now, sometimes they shred through him even quicker, so I've added the Burger Mark Burger, which gives him a boost of health when it gets low. So he'll get a boost of health, then he'll get the invincibility, and usually that is enough to take him along to his ability, where he shoots up into the sky, disappears from the battlefield, and comes crashing down, stuns everyone. But this basically removes him from the fight and removes him from the enemies attacking. So that is why I've chosen with him, because he's very good at basically just staying alive. Meanwhile, Invincible and especially Omni-Man can just go into the team, often without being attacked, because everyone's focused on the Immortal, and start doing damage to them. Hopefully kill one or two of them before Immortal comes back down. That way, when they do focus Immortal again, and he is low on HP, they are a man down, etc. Now, the reason why I've gone with Invincible is because he's one of the best in the game. He has, obviously, the invincibility again when he becomes low, so that often helps basically keeping him alive for longer during the fight, so that he can keep on fighting for longer. He does a decent amount of damage. His first ability basically shoots him close to the enemy with the highest attack damage, which basically helps not get him not letting the enemy attack him straight away, because he shoots to one of them and surprises them. Omni-Man, as you can see, is my highest level, and that is because he doesn't have anything like this with invincibility, and he is obviously on the front line, so I've powered him up more to give him more health and more damage, and also given him the cloaking device, because that makes him invisible so that he can survive longer as well. So basically, this team composition is basically survive longer than your opponent and wear them down with just over time, and basically outlive them, which I think is probably one of the best ideologies to use within this game. So Immortal basically takes loads of damage straight away, doesn't die, uses his ability, exits the battlefield, comes back down, stuns everyone, which is always nice, and then rejoins the fight. And then by the time the team focus him on again, then Atom Eve and Robot have their healing. Atom Eve with her shields, Robot with his healing, which basically boosts him back up. So hopefully by the time the enemy actually focuses on him again, then he's back to his ability and he can shoot away again. So basically he leaves the battlefield every time he's about to die, with the timing of how the game works, which is actually quite cool. So yeah, basically Omni-Man for DPS, Immortal just to take as much damage as possible and then live for as long as possible. Invincible to do damage and then also have the survivability and also the stun with his main ability where he goes around and punches everyone. That stun also helps just delay the enemy, wears them down, does damage to them. And then Eve in the backline and Robot in the backline, because they're ranged characters, means that they can stay far away from the battle, still do damage, still aid the team with mostly their healing and basically keep them alive throughout it. So I'll give you a quick demonstration. This is Cecil's Nightmares level 50, so obviously the enemies are very, very strong. As you can see here, I did beat the level. Didn't get the second or third rewards, but obviously with this team, that's still very good. So if we go into it now, obviously we can see here how they match up. So it is a Cecil's Nightmares, so they might not do too damage, but as you can see at the bottom of the screen in terms of their health, you can see Immortal is taking the most hits, and then second to the Omni-Man. Now as you can see, there we go, Burger activated. Immortal also uses ability. Atom Eve now gives him a shield. Robot gives a second follow-up of health. So as you can see, they're all being kept alive by the two supports at the back. Omni-Man also has lifesteal, which also helps with the team, and then Immortal, again, as soon as they start focusing him, he leaves the battlefield just like that, comes back down, stuns them, and it's basically just this repeats over within the battle, and then usually you should be victorious at the end. Obviously it depends on the power of your team, but that is probably the first team composition I wanted to cover. This is the one I've been using and having the best luck with. It doesn't do the most amount of damage, but it definitely has very good survivability, which is something I very much like. Now, obviously with different team compositions, you can swap out quite a few different options. For example, within this, Atom Eve does have I think it's a second ability where her shields do damage back to enemies when she's with an original member of Team, in this case Robot, which is perfect. However, for example, there is another team composition that you could potentially run that would remove this from Atom Eve, but maybe give you higher results in terms of wins. So what we could potentially do is remove Immortal and remove Robot, and add in two of the other best characters in the game, which I mentioned earlier, Alan and Universa. Now in this case, I've got my Universa powered up. Alan is not quite there, so he's not in the same sort of level, but this team composition would also work very well, because again, Alan has the survivability for when his health drops low, he gets a healing boost and a defense boost, which is very useful. Now, in some instances where the enemies are extremely powerful, sometimes in Cecil's Nightmares, or if you're against a very strong PvP opponent, then that healing and defense might actually even still be chewed through before he can use his ability and exit the battlefield. So he might die straight away if the enemy have enough DPS, whereas with Immortal, he has the invincibility, so he's basically guaranteed to stay alive, which is what I like about that. But both are very good. And then obviously the addition of Universa, it does remove the second option, the second ability from Atom Eve. However, Universa obviously is one of the best, if not the best DPS in the game, so this combination here would basically give you a higher DPS with maybe less survivability. So if you're facing opponents that maybe aren't doing the most damage to yourself, but maybe are more tanky and have more health, then this would actually help chew through that, because this way you have 3 DPS on the team instead of just the 2. So that is another option. Now, I was playing around again recently. It depends obviously what heroes you have access to. You know, some are in some shops, some aren't available anywhere. But another team composition that I was thinking is keeping these two, Alan and Universa, and then including Nissa, Spider, what's his name? Agent Spider, I almost said Spider-Man. Agent Spider and and Atom Eve. Now this team composition I was thinking would be very good, because obviously Alan is there for the survivability, Universa is there for the DPS, and then Atom Eve with her abilities powered up would give still a lot of healing even without Robot. And then the addition of Anissa and Agent Spider. Anissa is very good. It's a very good DPS. She also has an ability where she can boot an enemy from the battlefield for a few seconds, which also allows her to then focus other opposition members, which helps focus them down. She also has a great ability where she increases the defense of human enemies, which in most instances are most heroes, so that is a very good one as well. And also has third and fourth ability. Basically, if an enemy is pushed, then she dashes through them, does a huge amount of damage, and with the fourth ability, if she kills them with that, it resets her main ability. So that is the main source of her third and fourth abilities, which rely on the enemies being pushed. Now, if we look at Agent Spider here, we can see that if we come out of there, if we go to his character, we can see that his skill set, basically all of the abilities, actually push the enemy. So if you combine these abilities with Anissa's, they pair very, very nicely. And then obviously we have the team chemistry to help boost their stats as well. So as you can see here, his main ability, he actually starts off the match with it, and that obviously then gives Anissa straight away a damage attack on them. You can see last line of defense here is critical chances increased, and last line of defense, Atom Eve is one of those, so that works with the synergy with that. And then obviously with this, if they get stunned in any way, he basically does damage to them, and then his final ability as well, he pushes and stuns the ability every 7 basic attacks. So those work very well with Anissa, which is why with this team composition, I believe it would work very well. Again, I've not got them all the way powered up. I have given it a few trial runs, and from what I've seen, it has been very, very good. So that is another team composition that I believe would also not only be very fun, but also obviously very good and very competitive because of the way the characters work with each other. Some other options, obviously you have this new addition of Conquest, who in this team could work very well. Now, if you can use Anissa without Agent Spider, obviously that was the sort of full chemistry link up we were looking between, but you could, for example, remove these, and even though Conquest is a tank, he does a huge amount of damage, so you could have Alan as the absorption of damage, the main tank, and then have Conquest on the side, who again is still a tank, so great survivability, especially with his shield that he gets after using his main ability, but he does a large amount of damage and can basically sort of go unattacked on the side while Alan takes main damage. And then obviously with this team comp, we want another Earth Defenders because we have Atom Eve. So again, Invincible, Omni-Man would work very well. Agent Spider would work well. He's very good at stunning the enemy, but maybe not necessarily that good at doing that much DPS. Even Red Rush here would work extremely well because obviously he is a support, but he's more of an offensive support, so he would still be able to do a larger amount of damage. And then obviously if you have your Universa powered up, then that would be more than enough DPS. Even though you've got 2 tanks and 2 supports, it would still work very well. And cool thing about Red Rush and Universa, if we go to their abilities here, is we can see that Universa has an ability where every time she performs a basic critical hit, she does a chain attack to, if you're at level 10, to 4 different enemies. Level 1 is just 1, but she basically can damage everyone else on the team every time she does a critical hit. And with Red Rush, one of his skills, I believe is the second one, yes, his team's critical chance is increased by 10%, and if you get to level 10, 45% when fighting against attackers, which you will pretty much have an attacker on every single opposition team you come up against. So if you upgrade Red Rush's second ability, that gives a 45% increase to critical attack for the team. And obviously if you have Universa, who does a chain attack every critical hit, then that would pretty much guarantee, 8 times out of 10 a critical hit, which would massively increase her DPS. So that team composition could also be a very, very good one, where it was Alan, potentially Invincible, or potentially even Conquest, and then it was Universa and Atom Eve and Red Rush. That was it. Yes, that could also be a very good option. Another good synergy which seems to work well is, obviously we were looking at Agent Spider and Anissa, and you could even then have the option of Conquest in there because he has a push. So not only would you be getting the push from Agent Spider, but also from Conquest, and that would mean that Anissa would be basically dashing all over the place and dealing massive amount of damage. So I think Anissa has great potential paired with the right heroes, and I think those heroes are definitely Agent Spider and very much Conquest as well. So those are some team compositions that work. Obviously, there's loads of different heroes. Again, I mentioned before, Doc Seismic. Now, he's quite difficult because the criminal side, the criminal faction, don't have best heroes, in my opinion. Titan is pretty decent, but I would say that you have better options of Conquest, Immortal, and Alan. So one thing that Doc Seismic would work very well with is the newly introduced Powerplex. Now, he is quite a new hero, so it depends obviously how high you have him powered up. But basically, Powerplex, if we look at his ability here, basically boosts Technologists, I believe. Yeah, Technologists on the team, they receive a 15% energy attack boost and 6% cooldown reduction. And if we upgrade that, obviously it's boosted quite up. And Doc Seismic falls under that category. So not only does he work incredibly well already, but he would then get a decrease on his main ability, which is very, very powerful, as you can see, especially powered up. He would also get an energy attack, which again would do a large, basically increased DPS, giving him even more DPS with those boosts from what's his name, Powerplex. So yeah, those two work very well together. So if you do want to use Doc Seismic, who is one of the best in the team, and you are struggling with, finding him a criminal faction teammate, if they are, because obviously they're not the best, then Titan is a good option, but Powerplex and Doc Seismic work very, very well together with those two. So yeah, I think that obviously should help you guys to build a good composition. Again, my favorite, or the one I've been using so far, has been this team. However, obviously there are the other options, and if you just think about the synergies and the factions, then you can often build a very good team. Most of the time you want to try and use a tank up front, ideally Alan or Immortal, and then DPS surrounding that. Universe are definitely one of the best in the game. Doc Seismic, definitely one of the best in the game. And then some cool synergies maybe between Anissa and Agent Spider. And then ideally, if you do want more survivability, definitely have a healer or support, and in that case one of either Atom Eve, Robot, or potentially Red Rush. Red Rush is more of an offense DPS. He does do, I believe, some healing or invincibility when someone gets low health, but he's more offensive definitely than defensive. So yeah, hopefully that helps. Let me know your thoughts down below. If you have a different team composition or found other heroes that work very well, especially other synergies, then feel free to pop them in the comments below and what you think. Hopefully this has helped. Any thoughts or feelings on that, and also if you do want to see future content from myself, if you have any ideas, for example, then you can put those in the comments. But I will be uploading more soon, not only on this game but also other games, so stay tuned for that. If you would like to see that and you would like to help me, then please consider subscribing to the channel and liking the video, because that helps me make sure that you get to see what content is coming out more next time, and also means that it shows that people are enjoying this and would like to see more. So yeah, please like and subscribe. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Any comments or questions or thoughts, leave them in the comments below, and until next time, yeah, I'll see you guys then. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day. Cheers.